Without the island, without the sisterhood, what is left of Wonder Woman, the absolute Amazon and defender of the world of men? Today we're going to be taking a look at Absolute Wonder Woman issues 1 and 2. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this version of Diana of Themyscira. I'm Brennan for the New Wave Nerds. Subscribe down below for more nerd content and commentary. Now let's roll the intro. With art by Hayden Sherman, and is set in what was formerly known as the DC Elseworld. In a recent comics event, the DC All-In Special, this world was reformed using Darkseid energy, reformed into a world driven by challenge and turmoil, a world where hope is the underdog, and where the heroes are born facing even greater odds. Batman has no mansion, Superman has no family, and Wonder Woman has no Amazons. But the differences don't end there. To see what's changed in the life of Bruce Wayne, go ahead and check out Shayde's video that just went live last week. To see how this has affected Kal-El, the Man of Steel, go ahead and check out my video. But for now, let's focus on Wonder Woman. So as I mentioned, obviously, Wonder Woman, she has no island, i.e. no Themyscira, and in this world, she is raised outside of the Amazons. So how does that take place? I do think it's an interesting concept that we're working with here, and I think it could lead to some really, really cool story directions moving forward. So for now, let's jump right in. So in this world, obviously in Earth Prime, Diana is raised on the island of Themyscira among her sisterhood of Amazons, and she has this massive community surrounding her, right? But in this case, Diana is taken away from the Amazons. When we first see her, well, not when we first see her, because this is a flashback a couple pages in, but when we first when we first see the origins of Diana here, she is being given by Apollo to the witch Circe. Circe, who has been confined to the Wild Isle in the realm of hell, right? And Apollo gives this baby, this young Diana of Themyscira, to Circe and says, "You are her warden now." And when Circe asks why they've brought a baby to hell, Apollo simply says she is paying for the crimes of the Amazons, right? So I'm obviously a little bit curious to see what those crimes are. I'm a little bit worried about what they're going to do with the crimes here. I'm a little bit worried with the direction that we're going to take it. But in any case, I do think it is interesting to take Diana out of what is traditionally her home, put her in this, realm of quote-unquote evil, and to have her be raised by what has traditionally been one of her greatest villains. It is also interesting to see this juxtaposed against, like, say, Creature Commandos, which is the new DCU animated series, of which I've only seen the first 2 episodes, so I am one behind. But in that, the whole point of this so far has been that Circe is trying to, she's utilizing these incel men to try and get to the island of Themyscira. So it's kind of interesting to see those next to each other. But in any case, Diana is in hell with Circe, and naturally Circe is like, I'm not her mom. What do you mean? And Apollo's given me some pretty loose rules, so I can just, let nature takes its course, if you catch my drift. And, a snake, I suppose, crawls up to the crib of Diana, and she snatches it and throws it away. Now, I will say, the art here is absolutely beautiful. It looks amazing. I'm not a huge fan of the onomatopoeias that have been used so far in this. When Diana throws the snake, it literally says yeet. Yeet. And there's another part where she picks something up and it says yoink. Like, these are not traditional. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think these are like traditional onomatopoeias. And they just feel I feel like they date the work. I feel like it's very obvious that we're dealing with, like, millennials and Gen Z writers here. And I don't necessarily like that. I talked about this when I was mentioning Absolute Superman in the video that I did in Absolute Superman. I would much prefer a work be timeless and not have like the idiosyncrasies of the day in it. But in any case, a minimal complaint. The only real complaint that I have thus far with this comic is just the paneling. I am not a huge fan of it really at all. I respect that it is unique. I don't think I've seen anything like it, and so I respect the fact that it seems like we're doing something new here, and that is very cool to me. But the paneling itself is not very enjoyable. It's very, very I guess very circular. It's odd. I don't know if I necessarily like it. There are some cases where I think it works in its favor, like for example the scene very early on. I want to say this is like page 2 or whatever. This is the actual introduction to Wonder Woman, where she rides in on Pegasus and unsheaths her sword. There, the paneling I think is actually done really well, even though it is that still circular thing. But in general, I'm not a huge fan of it. But back to Wonder Woman's origin. So she is with Cersei. And naturally, Cersei, being one of the greatest magic users in all of the DC universe, trains Diana to be a witch. And I think that's really interesting. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in this next section here. But I'm excited to see like how this is going to affect her fighting style moving forward. We've seen a little bit of it in issues 1 and 2. Mostly, I want to say in issue 1. Yeah, it would have been mostly in issue 1. But in any case, I'm very curious how it's going to affect it moving forward. But so the fact that Diana has been, ripped away from her home and has been left in the care of Cersei means that functionally this story in many ways is about her accepting her Amazonhood and embracing that role and becoming who she is. And I do think that that's really, really interesting. And as we get later on, I'm going to talk about why I think that aspect of the story actually makes it one of the best Wonder Woman themes that I've read in a long time. But we're going to save that for later. For now, I do just want to take a moment to pivot and talk about the design of Diana here. It is amazing. I gotta say, Wonder Woman's history is fraught with sort of iffy designs, let's say, and they haven't been exactly amazing. And so when this series was announced, I was a little worried that they were going to take this sort of a grungy route, and it was going to be sort of down and dirty and gritty and stuff, and it was going to be like a kind of what we saw in say the 90s with Wonder Woman, where she's basically wearing biker leather and stuff, and I did not like that. But I was very pleasantly surprised with what we ended up getting. I think it's really cool. It keeps a lot of what is what you might imagine is the traditional important aspects, I suppose, of the Wonder Woman costume, and adapts them into this, absolute universe where she is grown in hell. She obviously still has the W on the breastplate, which maybe theoretically wouldn't necessarily work in this context, but I think it definitely does. It's very cool. I love all of the red. The tattoo on her right arm is just amazing. I'm really liking the design of this. I mean, I think it's incredible. The furs around as well, I'd forgotten that, but those are pretty sick. There is one aspect of the design, though, that I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, and that is the mythical Athena blade. Now, I know a lot of people don't like when Wonder Woman has a sword, period. I think Wonder Woman is pretty awesome when she has a sword. Don't get me wrong, I think it's pretty sick. But I'm not a fan, and I've never been a fan of these massive the massive swords, where it's the blade itself is 12 times the width of the hilt. When we look like we're Cloud from, is that Final Fantasy? Oh no, I don't remember. If it's not Final Fantasy, that's going to be really embarrassing. I gotta look that up quick, guys, just to save myself. It is, yes, Cloud Strife. Okay. Whew. When we've got a sword like that size, I just don't like it. I have never liked it. I've always thought it's unwieldy. Um, don't get me. I think great swords and two-handed broadswords are okay, but I just don't like the way that they look. And it's the type of thing where it's like there's no way that this is balanced. There's no way that this is easy to swing. And I don't mean just like weight and heft wise, because obviously Wonder Woman is incredibly strong, right? She's essentially a Greek god, so she's like strength is not the problem. I just mean like the literal balance. What's the joke in I want to say it's in Avengers Age of Ultron, right? Where it's after oh geez, I haven't seen this movie in so long. It's after Vision picks up Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, at the end battle, and he swings it. Is this Age of Ultron? I don't know, but he swings it, and he's like, "Oh, it's terribly well balanced." And Thor goes, "Well, yeah, if there's too much weight on one side, you lose power on the swing," or something like that. It's a joke, but it is like legitimately a thing, and so anytime I see a sword that's this huge, that's the only thing I can think of, and I'm like, how are you swinging this? I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. I wish it were just like a regular sword. To be honest with you. But it is what it is. Again, not necessarily a huge part. It is cool, however, that the sheath for it, I suppose, is this magical bag that has it's very small. It sits at her side and holds this massive sword in it. I saw it and immediately thought of Hermione's pouch from Harry Potter. When would that? I don't know when she gets it, but they use it in the later. We're getting a lot of various cultural references in here that I can only half remember, so bear with me, guys. So I do think the bag itself is cool, and it's a little thing that further exemplifies the fact that Diana is a witch, right? In this case, Diana is not just she's not just a warrior. She has the ability to use magic. Again, she's been trained by one of the greatest sorceresses in the entire DC universe. And so it's interesting to see that play out in different parts here. Like I said, we do see her use the magic a little bit in the fight. Not as much as I would have liked. Not as I would have liked if one of the major things of this story is that Diana is a witch who has been, raised by Cersei, and that has drastically changed, everything about her, including her fight style. It is the type of thing where I would have liked to have seen it showcased more. But granted, we're only 2 issues in, and the 3rd issue looks like it's going to be a massive battle, so I'm sure we're going to be seeing quite a bit of magic there. As far as how we actually see it, it's very, very limited, right? As far as I can remember, there's basically only like a few places. The only ones that really stick out to me is where there's a section where she brings her wrist guards together and speaks an incantation and blasts, some Harbingers away. And there's another part where she runs up to the leg of the villain of the first issue and like touches his leg, and I guess I would assume that she's trying to banish him, banish it, I suppose, because I mean it seems. We'll get into the villain in a little bit here, but I'm not 100% sure there. But yeah, it's very limited in so far as we get to see it, and I wish we could have seen more of it in these 2 issues. But like I said, as we progress, this is definitely going to affect her moving forward. The other thing, which I'm not 100% sold on, but I think is a cool concept, is Absolute Wonder Woman's lasso. In Earth Prime, we have the lasso of truth, right? It is this beautiful golden thing, which I want to say is crafted by Hephaestus in a post-crisis world, but I could be wrong. But in any case, you wrap it around somebody and it compels them to tell the truth, right? It's essentially a truth serum. Not quite the same. not quite the same in the Absolute universe. It's not the lasso of truth. In this, it is the Nemesis Lasso. And it's created, again, I'm fairly certain it's by Hephaestus, but I could be wrong. But in the Absolute universe, it's crafted by Circe herself. Circe makes it and imbues it with this magic, and it's created from, I think she says, the skin of the last basilisk, and it's blessed by the goddess Demeter, right? And so its whole origin is incredibly different, but the function is vastly different from how we see it in Earth Prime. In this, the Nemesis Lasso, what is the word? It quote, binds and burns in proportion to one's sins. So there's a scene in the second issue where Wonder Woman wraps it around this main villain, and it burns with immense pain. And she says that it is the pain that you feel is equivalent to the pain that you have inflicted throughout your existence, right? And so it's burning with the pain of 1,000,000 deaths or whatever. That is a very, very cool concept. I like the idea of that, but it's weird. It is interesting in what it means. Like, theoretically, Diana in the Absolute universe does not have the same level of she doesn't place the same say reverence on truth as she would on other things, right? In Earth Prime, truth is something that she is always actively pursuing. It's something that's always at the forefront of her mind because it's directly on her hip, right? In this, it seems this Wonder Woman functionally seeks not the truth, but seems to seek a little bit of revenge, right? Again, based off of the Nemesis Lasso, it binds and burns in proportions to one's sins. So this is very curious. Obviously, I'm not saying that this Wonder Woman completely disregards all truth. I'm not saying that she's solely out for revenge, right? Because when we see her interact with the world of men, she's doing it as a protector, right? She is fulfilling the role of the Amazons. But I do think that it has some interesting implications for her story moving forward, and I really, really, really want to see how this plays out. It seems pretty obvious to me that she's going to use this, the Nemesis Lasso, eventually to bind, say Zeus or whatever, and he's going to feel the pain that he's inflicted on the Amazons or whatever. Seems pretty clear that that's what's going to happen here, but I don't know. Obviously, that's way in the future if it happens at all. But all in all, I will say that I'm a huge fan of the design of Absolute Wonder Woman. Now, one thing that I do think is an interesting choice for this is the choice of villain, right? I've mentioned them a little bit. I've sort of talked around them. It's a weird choice, in my opinion, to have the main villain of this be a completely new villain, completely original. So in the first two issues, Diana is battling against these, she calls them the Harbingers, and the main villain, the big boy, is the Harbinger Prime. And this is nowhere else in any other comic, right? And that's not necessarily my issue with it. That's not necessarily the biggest problem here. I just do think that if you're going to fundamentally change the character in this way, right, where you make one of her main villains her mother figure, part of me sort of thinks that you've got to have some other thing to tie this to the original Wonder Woman, right? Or maybe not tie it, but there has to be some other thread, in my opinion, that emphasizes the difference here and emphasizes how the world itself is different. Because right now, the only differences are with I just said her name, with Diana. Wow, with Wonder Woman. That was a really embarrassing. Anyways, the only differences are with Diana, whereas in say the case of Batman, wow, my brain is not working right now. In the case of Batman and Superman, other characters besides the titular heroes have their lives altered and affected and changed, right? In the case of Batman, the lives of the entire rogues gallery is different. In the case of Superman, Lois Lane is very visibly different. And presumably it would appear as though maybe Brainiac himself will be different as well, but that remains to be fully seen. But in this, I'm not sure. It's interesting. I just wish, and granted, I'm not as familiar with the villains of Wonder Woman as I am with the villains of Batman and Superman, so I don't even necessarily have a great suggestion here. Well, I mean, one thing that could have been interesting is if you had taken somebody who is, if you're going to make somebody who is traditionally a villain of Wonder Woman and make her her mother figure, her anchor being in the world, you could take somebody that is traditionally an ally of Wonder Woman and make them a villain. And actually, I don't know. Again, I don't know who that would be. I don't necessarily have a problem with it because the villain does seem like it's going to be sufficiently epic once we get to it, and I'm assuming that once we get to this next issue here, there's going to be some amazing fight scenes, and I'm really, really excited to see. I'm not excited for the paneling, but I'm excited to see Hayden Shermer's art here. It seems really, really interesting. I really like what we got going on in these first few issues. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious to see how we're going to move forward. Is the entirety of this arc going to be around this new villain, this entirely new villain? Or as we progress into issues 3, 4, and 5, is there going to be some reveal that or something that brings this closer to like the traditional Wonder Woman Prime? I don't know, but I'm very curious. I'm excited to see what happens moving forward. Now, finally, before we wrap things up, I just want to, like I mentioned, I want to talk about this theme, right? One of my problems with modern Wonder Woman stories is that in a lot of cases, it feels like they go for the ultimate feminist girl boss, and they make this character who has nothing but disdain for the world of men, right? You see this apart from this aspect of apart from this theme, I really like the comic. What was it called? Wonder Woman Dead Earth. I really enjoyed the look and the feel of that and stuff. But when you do a story like that, it can be a very good story. It can be very well written. Like I said, I enjoyed Wonder Woman Dead Earth. But the problem with that is that I feel like you're losing what is at the heart of the Wonder Woman character. Right? At the heart of Wonder Woman, yes, she is this feminist icon. She has always been this feminist icon. But at the heart of that, one of the reasons that she is a feminist icon is because she is feminine, right? It is because she is overflowing with this love and compassion, and that spills throughout in the rest of the world. She's a feminist icon because she's a woman doing all of these things, but because she's a woman superhero doesn't take away from the fact that she is a woman, right? I think it's fair to say that generally women are more kind and compassionate than men, right? I don't think that's not a hot take, I don't think. And so that is like a fundamental aspect of Wonder Woman. And in this comic, I was very worried that we were going to get rid of that, but it stays there throughout the entire thing, right? It stays there throughout like all of the backstory. We see her love and compassion and just her general kindness come through, right? She is there trying to be polite and friendly and provide a home to these demons and these monsters, right? She is playing with them, right? And she isn't just murdering them right away. She's giving them an opportunity to, see the light, if you will, before she kills them. And furthermore, just the fact that Diana is there softens the heart of Cersei. when we see her in the beginning, she's just like scrounging around, right? She's barely getting by on the wild Isle of Hell. It is just a barren landscape. And then there's I want to say it's two-page spreads, so 4 pages in total, where we see essentially a time lapse of Diana growing up. And as Diana grows and becomes an adult and becomes a person, the entire home shifts. It stops being a cave and actually becomes a home, right? And that is because of Diana there. That is because of Diana. That is because of the fact that Cersei is now a mother, right? So inherently, this comic is very, very pro-family, which is something that I'm a huge fan of, right? I think that it's great, and it keeps the heart of Wonder Woman and displays it throughout, right? And we keep the heart of Wonder Woman even when she's in the present, right? When she's talking with these military men, right? The typical sort of way that you would do this in a modern context is the men would be rude to her, and then she would put them down in the most brutal way possible, and she would just insult she would be very rude, and she would do the Captain Marvel thing, right? If we're talking about Captain Marvel, the movie, that is, not the comics, when relatively early on there's a scene where I think this is when Brie Larson is still wearing like the Kree outfit, right? So this is before she's been disguised, and a dude on a bike says, "You should smile more," or something like that. And so because of that, she steals his bike and steals his clothes and stuff. That's the traditional modern way to do this. But in this case, we do this in a Wonder Woman way, right? The army men, the soldiers, well, not all of them, but the men, the commanding officer is incredibly rude to Diana, right? He's belittling her in any way, right? But she doesn't like punch him. She doesn't do anything like that. All she says is, "Look, buddy, you need me. I don't need you. When you're ready to calm down, I'll be outside and we can work together to save lives." She puts him down and tells him, "Look, buddy, your misconceptions are just that. Your preconceptions, whatever I'm trying to say here. You're wrong, buddy." But she does it in the most polite way possible, and in the way where it puts forward the fact that, like, Wonder Woman doesn't have to prove herself, right? Wonder Woman isn't the kind of person who has to be like, I'm in this world of men and I'm a woman. I need to prove to them that I'm just as strong and just as powerful. No, she is more powerful. She knows it. And so she doesn't have to waste time proving herself to them, right? She just goes, I'm going to do what I have to do. You do what you have to do. And buck up, buddy. And I think that's the much better way of doing this, right? That's the way I think to actually make a pro-feminist story, right, is to not have them be an incredibly annoying person like Brie Larson is in Captain Marvel, but to have them be like Wonder Woman in Absolute Wonder Woman, where she knows that she's better than all of the men here. She knows that she's stronger than all of them. She knows that she could kill them all before they breathed. She knows that she could do anything with the sword, without the sword, using the magic, without the magic. She could annihilate all of them. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She doesn't care what they think, right? She is confident in who she is, and she understands who she is. And that's what makes it a good story, in my opinion. But I don't know. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you like maybe, you're aggrieved, and so you enjoy seeing people get destroyed and put down. But I don't. I much prefer having a good story, and I think that's what this is. I'm really, really excited to see how this plays out moving forward. I obviously have some questions. What's going on with the Amazons? obviously, what is the crime that they committed, the crime that they committed? What service are they performing for Zeus? I'm not 100% sure. That is one of the cases where I'm a little bit worried that this is going to be like, I'm a little bit worried that the service that they're performing for Zeus is a service, if you catch my drift, and he is forcing them to commit acts. Let's just not go any further in that. I'm just a little bit nervous here. I think that depending on the direction that they take this could either make it a really rich and deep story, or it could make it incredibly shallow and boring, or not boring, but just incredibly shallow and I can't find the second word that I'm going to use there, but I don't know. I'm curious. There's a potential here that I could obviously be surprised, and it could be amazing, and I hope that I'm surprised here. But I'm not very confident. I'm also curious, like, how is the world going to react to Wonder Woman, right? Like, obviously, this is the most public, or presumably this would be the most public display of heroism, of superheroes in this world thus far, right? I'm not sure about the actual legitimate timeline here, but Superman is released after Wonder Woman, so I'm assuming that the events of the Wonder Woman comic take place before that. But even so, what happens in Gateway City is obviously going to be much more newsworthy than what happens in a small town in Brazil, right? Like, it's just, that's how the news works, right? I mean, there's I don't know, millions, tens, hundreds of, I don't know how big a city Gateway City is, but regardless, that's obviously very public. So how is the world going to react to seeing this hero? I don't know. I'm curious. Now, nextly, what's going on with Steve Trevor? Who is he in this universe, right? Well, the commanding officer who's incredibly rude to Diana, he describes him as, he says, "I know the world sees you as superhero meets Jesus." I don't, and that he says, but I don't care, or something like that, something along those lines. Now, two things. One, it's funny. Superhero meets Jesus. That's literally just Superman. That's like the traditional understanding of Superman, is that he is secular comic book Jesus. But in any case, what has Steve Trevor done in this to make him fit that description? Or I mean, maybe he doesn't fit that description, but what has Steve Trevor done in this universe that people would ascribe that to him, that the public would think that that's, a reasonable thing? I don't know, man. I'm really excited. Presumably it's going to have something to do with whatever happens after he leaves the Wild Isle. I don't know. I'm curious, but I want to see how this plays out, and I'm curious to see how their relationship moves forward. When we first see the two of them interact in the present, Wonder Woman's eyes are red. Red with the power, because of the power of magic flowing through her. I don't know. Red because of the rage that she's feeling. Red because of the adrenaline of the heat of the battle. I don't know, but her eyes are this deep red, and they obviously do start. If you look at the panel, they do start to ease and turn a little bit blue before Steve Trevor walks up. But when he walks up and speaks to her, her eyes open wide and they turn to like this crystal clear blue. So are these, I don't know. I'm curious. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do here. I want to see what happens. I want to see how this relationship moves forward. I want to see, is this like the standard? Like how is their relationship going to differ from, like, say, the standard Earth Prime view? I don't know. But it's there's a lot of potential here. I did very much enjoy this comic. Like I said, it's tough. I don't know where I would rank it story-wise out of the three, but because of the paneling, this was definitely my least favorite of the first wave of absolutes. But like I said, that's just because of the paneling. if you watched my previous video, you'll know that Superman is very clearly my favorite one of Wave 1 for the Absolute line. Where would I put Wonder Woman above Batman? I don't know. That's a difficult question. I'm gonna have to do some thinking about that. I'll probably wait on such a volatile opinion as this until the entire 5-issue arc for both comics is done. But it's a heated battle. The fact that it's a question definitely says a lot, because I've been a Batman man for my whole life, so that definitely says something. But in any case, I think we're going to wrap things up there. Let me know down below what you guys thought of this version of Diana of Wonder Woman. Let me know what you thought of the video, and let me know if you want to keep seeing us do comic content, right? Obviously, we're enjoying it quite a bit. In fact, the next video that we're going to be doing is releasing, I want to say December 19th. It's a Thursday. And it's going to be Shayde, who's going to be taking a look at the One Bad Day Mr. Freeze comic. So definitely stick around for that. And I will see you guys next time.